Good evening, I'm Roger Phillips, and I volunteered, with your permission, to be temporary chair for the sole purpose of conducting the initial election at this required first meeting of the Charter Commission. The first nomination would be for chair of the board, and normally of the commission rather, and someone would then nominate, and then it's seconded, and we don't have any discussion at that point. We wait till there are other nominations, and if any, and then we open up for discussion, and then go from there. Yes, recognized.
Mr. Phillips, I'd like to make a nomination
Well, you're recognized to do such.
for chair. I would be very pleased to nominate someone who has served as chair of the last Charter Commission, who was a teacher for many years in this district, served for many, many years on the school board, has incredible institutional knowledge about the community and the school district itself, along with other people who are sitting around this table. But her experience is very lengthy and very strong. And I served with her when we were both members of the board of trustees of the university system, was remarkably impressed with her knowledge and her attention and skill. And it would be a great honor for me to nominate Betty Hoadley, who also received the greatest number of votes in this election. And so that I would like to place into nomination, Betty Hoadley for chair.
And is there a second to that
I'll
nomination?
second that.
All right.
I must add that I'm very good at seconding without saying a lot like Bill Ardinger.
We always need a second.
I don't think I've ever heard anyone give a speech for a second.
I know.
I just never know, right?
Are there any other nominations? Seeing none, then,
Can I say a word, though?
well, yes, you may.
Betty was the chair of the last Charter Commission, and on that commission was a lot of differing opinions and views, and it was just held so well. Everybody gave their opinion. Betty was there, and she made sure that everybody got a chance to say what they had to say. And some people didn't get their way, but everybody walked away saying that that was well done. And Betty did that. So,
Well, would someone move that the nominations close?
I'll move that.
Great, and I'd second that.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
With nominations closing? All right, opposed? All right, all in favor of the nomination of Betty Hoadley as chair of this commission, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed? That ends my duty. The lame duck will now waddle out of here.
Okay, so are you going to depart? And-
Yes, I am.
Okay, but we are going to invite you back, you know that. Either you or Patrick or both of you.
Yeah, I think they will be happy to answer any questions or
Oh, that's what we need.
make any
Yeah.
suggestions.
And early on. So yes, we'll be in touch.
All right.
I hate the expression, "I'll reach out to you," because it sounds like you're trying to find your way through a maze. I will be in touch with you one way or another, but I won't reach out to you.
Very good, well, thank you.
Well played, Roger, well played.
Madam Chair, before Roger departs, can
Yes.
I just
Oh, please do.
jump in and say that to everyone that this is a gentleman who I saw the last time, and I think we've all experienced working with Roger. He is going to leave the position as clerk of the district. And I think anybody that is working with the school district has an obligation to say how thankful we are as people who love the public schools and the community for your service as clerk of the district. I know that it's been incredible, and I know everyone feels that way, but we'd be remiss to have you leave without saying thank you.
I couldn't agree more.
Well, take care and have a nice short meeting.
Okay. There we go. First matter, before we go to further nominations, is I would like to have your reaction to the mask business. Evidently, the masks are required within the school buildings. However, I've been in the buildings and under certain conditions, the masks have been dropped or put away when they were talking and then put back on. I don't want to force anything unhealthy upon anybody, but I really, really feel like we have an obligation to ourselves to be able to hear well, and sometimes masks don't make that possible. We have an obligation to scribe or secretary or of any observers, of any people who are here as our guests, and most of all, to the recording itself, because if that's not legible, then, you know, it's useless. So could I have a reaction from you? As you can see, I have my ski gaiter thing, and I can pull it up and take it down and pull it up and take it down. But there are some people who have trouble hearing through other people through a mask, and with the beauty of this, and then you see, I know people in high places like next door, and I have these, so I'm all set. But may I have a reaction from you, what you'd feel comfortable with? Anybody at all?
Betty, it feels to me like, just let people rely on their own judgment.
Okay.
If we think people are not being heard, certainly the people in the other room will tell us.
Okay,
I find it harder and harder to decide going into any place right now whether I should wear a mask or not.
I know,
I suspect we've all been vaccinated.
and boosted.
Yeah, but we've got, some people here have small children, and they may have a different view of that. So we're all adults, we can make that decision ourselves. I wouldn't want to see a determination one way or the other on it.
That's fine. I see nods around the head, and they're all around. Okey-doke. Well, on we go. And the next thing I want to do to interrupt going to the next stage is, I think we sort of need to know each other's names before we start putting anybody in nomination. So guess what? Nancy, you're the unlucky one because you're sitting at the end of that row. I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself with one thing you don't mind telling us. And then we'll go on to Eric and just go all the way around. Are you ready?
Sure.
Go.
I'm Nancy Kane. I served a year on the Concord School Board, filling someone's unexpired term, and that was a great experience, so I'm back in a different way for more. We've lived in Concord for over 30 years, 2 Concord School District graduates in our family. I'm a nurse by background and was the director of the Payson Center from its beginning until about 6 years ago, and
Okay.
that's it.
No.
No?
You're not
Oh, no,
free yet.
I'm not, okay.
You have to tell us, all of us, what favorite dessert you want to see on the table on Thanksgiving.
Oh, well, I will be making my mother's sour cream apple pie. That is the request of the family.
Okay, good enough. Eric, you're up.
Eric, let's see, Eric Wayner, I've been here 14 years in town. 2 kids who made it through the system, and we're stuck with at least one of them. Let's see, skipping right to dessert. No one loves me enough to make me a cherry pie, so I'll settle for apple.
Okay, but I'm not going to let you away yet.
Oh.
Duck meat or white meat on the turkey?
If it's a sandwich, it's white meat. If it's just like on a plate, dark
Okay,
meat.
okay, good. Yeah.
You worked at this, Betty.
Okay, Kate, you're up.
Sure. I'm Kate Vaughn. I've lived in Concord for, I'm trying to think right now, I guess 7 or 8 years now. And I have a daughter who's in the school district in 1st grade right now. Before moving to Concord, I lived in Manchester, and I had the pleasure of serving on the Manchester School Board for a term there. I ran for the Concord School Board last year and lost, but here I am winning an unopposed race.
Let's hear it for our folks.
1 for 1.
Best way to do it.
Any way at all. Okay, but no, Tom, she's gonna get another one too, don't worry, and you will too. Okay, Kate, what's your favorite side dish? What vegetable or fruit at Thanksgiving will you really wanna make sure is on your table?
The stuffing.
Oh, okay. All right, Tom, hard act to follow, go ahead.
Well, I was prepared for the dessert question, so that's gone now.
Oh, no,
But
I
at
think
any rate,
that-
I'm Tom Croto. I've been around in this city for 68 years. I have been on the Concord School Board. I was a teacher and a principal. I've had the pleasure of working with some of the people sitting around this table right here, right now, and I look forward to more months of meeting and working with folks that I haven't had the pleasure of working with yet.
Okay, your question is, do you carve the turkey at your house?
I avoid it.
Okay. Clint?
Clint Cogswell. I've been in Concord 40-some years. I was a principal for 30 here in Concord, Kimball, Dewey, and Walker schools, which are all gone. I have,
Is there any connection?
yeah, right. They
Yeah.
closed because of me.
Yeah,
I spent 10 years on the Concord School Board. I had 3 children go through the Concord system and 1 grandson I raised, who's now at Arizona State University. And that's where all my spare change go.
okay. And here's the question for you. Do you help wash the dishes?
If I don't, I'd get killed.
Tracy?
I'm Tracy Lesser. We've been in Concord for 17 years. I teach over at the Tech, NHTI, chemistry and environmental science. I have 2 girls in the school district right now. One is a freshman at Concord High and one is a 2nd grader at Beaver Meadow School.
Okay, and we'll go back to the favorite dessert.
Oh, pumpkin pie.
And my neighbor, Bill Glenn.
I'm Bill Glahn. I'm a very boring man. I've lived in Concord for 46 years. I've been married to the same woman for 50, and I've only had 2 houses in the length of time I've lived in Concord. So in one of those houses, Kate Vaughn spent a lot of time in the basement because she went to high school with my older son. So I've known Kate for a long time, and Kate was an associate in our law firm. I have 2 sons, one of whom went to Concord schools through 8th grade and one through 10th grade. I was on the Concord School Board for 11 years and was on the Dairyfield Board for 12.
Okay, let's see. Do you carve the turkey at your house?
Yes, unless I can con my older son into it, in which case he does a much better job than I do.
Oh, okay, I wondered why you gave up the job. And Bill?
Thanks. My name is Bill Ardinger. I've lived in Concord with my family since 1989. My claim to fame is that I'm married to a wonderful woman, Cass, who's served with many of you in connection with the Concord Public Schools. And we have had 3 children going through the Concord Public School system while we've been here. An interesting fact that starts to challenge Attorney Vaughn being in Bill's house is that Cass and I both graduated from Stevens High School in Claremont, where we fell in love with public schools. And the Kane family was a very wonderful group of friends in Claremont. So there's a connection again, a small community connection. I'm really happy to be allowed to work with this group. So thanks.
Okay, and your favorite side dish or vegetable or fruit for Thanksgiving would be?
I'm going to be boring and second the stuffing because that is Greek stuffing is what I like in the turkey.
Okay. I'm Betty Hoadley, and I'm not going to tell you one more thing about me except that in my younger days I had really bushy hair, and it was very red with copper lights. I don't have as much hair now, and it certainly has changed color, but I haven't forgotten the old habits. You know why redheads are redheads, don't you? It's a warning sign. Here they come. All right. With a little bit of frivolity behind us, let's go back to business, and the next order of business is the election of a vice president. And that's a really important job because somebody has to stand by in case I get hit by a truck. And we have lots of other things for a vice president to do. So I would like to open up the nominations for vice president of the Charter Commission. There's a hand.
I'd be happy to start. Again, you will find I'll stop being noisy as soon as we get things disorganized. Again, the people at this table have contributed so much more to the school district than I have. One of them who I've worked with on the last Charter Commission is Clint Cogswell. He has the ability to bring people together. As he mentioned, we had a very wide group, and we had to, like constitutions, make a couple of compromises in order to get a document to the Concord voters that was on the main point, which was to get the voters in control of their own charter document rather than the state legislature. His service to the community, like all of yours, is huge. But I think that I'd like to nominate him to serve as vice chair of this group. He is a wonderful guy and deeply loved in the community, like many of you, but I think his experience last time with the Charter Commission commends it. So I'd like to nominate Clint.
Second.
Thank you. Is there a second for that
I will
nomination?
second that.
Thank you. Are there other nominations? I'm looking. There appear to be none. Would someone like to move that the nominations cease?
I move that
Thank you.
the nominations.
Is there a second for that?
I will second that.
Okay. All in favor for Clint as vice chair of this organization will say aye and raise a hand or do whatever you want.
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. How'd it go, Clint?
Thanks,
Okay.
Bill, those were nice words.
You deserve it.
Now, the job of secretary is actually one, you're gonna have a little bit of work here, because I think it would be important when we decide on our list of people that we really want to hear from, that a call or a personal invitation from our secretary would do it. We don't want to just email them or just show up. In other words, we want to give them a distinct feeling that we have a real need to hear from them. And that, I know, is one of the jobs that I would hope our secretary would take on. And so with that, I open up the nominations for secretary of the Charter Commission. Oh, you're doing well.
I'm sorry that it's,
Yeah,
I
wait a
appreciate.
minute, you're batting 1,000, 3 for 3.
Well, I'll tell you, with this group, it's hard not to bat 1,000. It's kind of just how the dice roll. I would like to nominate Attorney Bill Glahn for the position of secretary. I've had an opportunity to work with Bill in some professional contexts where it just continually reminds me of how far I need to go to become a really exceptional lawyer. But more importantly, I know Bill has served on this school board and for this community at some of the most challenging times. And his experience and institutional background and knowledge of how processes work is unmatched. And I think that the job of secretary doesn't really involve a huge amount of minute taking. There are wonderful other people who help us with that. But to make sure that someone is paying attention to the process with a legal background, I think wouldn't be bad. And so I'm honored to put Bill Glahn's name as the third officer for secretary.
Okay, we heard that. Is there a second for that nomination? Nancy, thank you. Are there other nominations for secretary of this austere group? Well, we're just bombing right along. I don't know what time you ordered supper, but, 7:30 might do it. No, I don't think so. All right, are there other nominations for secretary? then I will declare that the nominations have ceased. And for all of you who wish to vote for Bill Glenn for secretary, would you please say aye or raise your hand or do both? Aye. Oh, you're so good. All right. Congratulations, Bill.
Thank you. I was told that doesn't require any work at all. So that's good.
Okay, now,
You have to sign the debt.
you probably noticed that Roger Phillips said nothing about a treasurer. Well, that was true. There is nothing about a treasurer at this group. But let me explain what does happen. By Constitution, by charter, the bills for this organization are funded by the Concord School District. And there's a very nice relationship because some things, such as the use of this room, in this case tonight, one of the school district employees here working as scribe or secretary. And so there is no treasurer position, there is no need to be. However, there is one thing from last time. We had a great need for legal counsel, and I describe it as doing all the grunt work, the heavy moving. And Dan Crean was contracted with us after a lot of examination as to who we'd have. And the bill, again, was picked up by the Concord School District. That won't be the case this time unless we just have a last legal opinion before something's passed in. And so the nature of our needs this time is quite different. Last time we started from square one. I mean, we had to figure out which laws affected us. We had to figure out in what domain we were or what overlapping domains. We had so much work to do just to get things settled. And then, as you know, most of you I'm sure, that there were 2 burning questions that came out that went to the public vote in November of the next year. Well, I don't mean to be a crystal ball person or a Ouija board person, but our whole job this time is going to be quite different. Now we have a document. We've worked with it for 10 years. We know where it's good. We know where it might not be so good. We know if there should be something added or subtracted. And so the nature of the job now is going to be quite different. And some of the things that will come up tonight in this organizational state is part of that difference. So the first thing, and again, this sounds trite, but I think we need to talk about what kind of rules we want to have among ourselves. And so the floor is open for any suggestions.
I think just the way you're handling it, Betty, and everybody has an opportunity to speak when they need to.
Well, you know what I did? Thank you. I went and I looked up Robert's rules. I know that I have a book somewhere, and I know that there are cheat sheets galore. And it looked and it said, oh, the 10 things that should happen. And so don't laugh too hard when I read the list. People are supposed to come on time and prepared, okay? You're supposed to stay in the present. In other words, don't let your mind go away. You're supposed to contribute. You're supposed to give time for all people to contribute. You have to listen and focus and then think before you speak and stay on point. And finally, you don't attack you attack the problem, not the person. Does this sound like a little civics lesson from 9th grade or somewhere? But I don't think, it did not do us any harm to listen to that. And so we will operate under Robert's rules, which the school board always has. Mm-hmm. And then the next thing I'd like to talk about is the level of formality here. Are we Mr. and Ms., or are we by our first names? Eric, I see you.
First name kind of guy, but
Me too.
I would second that.
so.
As long as you don't call me Wilbur, Betty.
Are you Wilbur, really?
I am.
Okay.
The third, no less.
We won't do that.
Are we still?
I remind both of my sons that they have me to thank for the fact they're not Wilbur the fourth.
And I would assume on early votes that majority would rule. But then as time goes on, we may find that our threshold of agreement might change. But for the moment, majority rules, the majority of who is here that night or day, whatever. So are we all set with first names? And this has to be a congenial thing. It really has to be. We have to, I hate the word bond. I sound like I'm sewing iron-on patches on jeans. But we do have to become one group. And it doesn't matter where we live or how we got here. We're just one group, all with the same goal in mind, and that is to do the best job we can by the Concord School District's charter. Occasionally, there may be roll call votes. And anyone could call for a roll call vote at any time. Oftentimes, it's hard, even in a group of 9, to figure out who voted for which thing. And if it's a really critical vote, someone might want to have a roll call so that it would be on the record. Is that okay? Mm-hmm. Okay. So, let's see what the next sheet says. Okay. Here's where you have to be in the moment, folks. This is a little piece of homework. Or we probably could get it done tonight. It's very important for us to hear from anybody and everybody who wants to come before the commission. But I think it's extremely important to have certain invited guests. And you saw me give a left-handed invitation to Roger before he left, and Patrick, the new clerk. And so, would you agree that those two should be invited? And on my own, I do get a little pushy sometimes. I asked the superintendent if she would like to be our guest on a certain night at a certain time. I think the first time slot, because she has a long day, lots of long days. And I also suggested that she bring with her the finance director or anybody else on staff who would have helpful opinions. We need to know what's important to the school district, what should be kept, what might be changed, and why. And then she also said she would like to bring with her Jim Richards, the current school board chair, and I thought that was a great idea. So, okay, so this isn't going to be homework if we solve it right now. You guys are just trying to get out of homework. I can see that. Okay. Will you give the chair the right to suggest how long people might have when they come to see us? For example, the groups I just talked about, half an hour, whatever time you need to present to us, and then let us have a Q&A, question and answer thing with them. But there are certain community members who might come and want to take an inordinately long time, and would you give me the privilege of suggesting to them that they would have a polite 15 or 20 minutes if it's a burning issue, and one at which that person would allow for us to do questions and answers with him or her. Actually, it's mostly hims. And then, I don't know what that means. Okay, let's see. I need to tell you what we've been able to arrange already. I haven't introduced her yet, but this lady right here is Lyndon Jackett, who is, I'll tell you, everybody's best right-hand person. She's the right-hand person of the present superintendent. And she was here. She remembers things from 10 years ago that I forgot. And she reminds me of things. And when I read the documents that she prepared in your folder here, there are just things that she's seen, been part of, reminded people of. She has skills and experience that are, how shall I say, just huge. There is no one else that I know who could bring this sort of background to us. And so we fooled around with a few ideas about how to get information out to the community and how to get questions in. So again, with this partnership that we have with the school board and the school district, we already have a presence on the school district website that says Charter Commission. And then what I was hoping, and I'm trying it on you for size, that when we get minutes from any meeting, to have them divided, well, edited first. It's so important to have edited minutes. You've all been in situations where I didn't say that, and it says that there, you know, or I don't think she was the one who brought it up. I thought that this one over here was. It's so important to get it right. So I would be suggesting that we post on the school district website under Charter Commission 3 things: brief description of the meeting, detailed description, detailed draft minutes of, and then notifications. And so what I'm hoping is that people can go to the website and with 2 or 3 clicks get into the Charter Commission, and then they would have those 3 things, and we may develop other things later that we want to put out. Is there a reaction to that? Good idea?
Betty, I think what also the 4th link would be that CCTV would put a link to this meeting, so if they chose to watch it.
Oh,
We're getting a thumbs up from the guy.
okay, Linda's got that down already.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see her writing. No, that's, yeah, Tom.
So should we also have a place there for folks to write in questions?
Oh, that's the next part. Okay, so there is something right now called Concord Schools Info at sau8.org. Translated is, you can send an email question in, and one Lyndon is the one who monitors that whole email receipt. And so we would be able to have Charter Commission info at sau whatever it is, 8.org there, now I've got it. And so we would have a 2-way street. People could go in and see what we've done and maybe even look at it if they are that brave. And then, on the other hand, if they have questions, they could come into the email that's dedicated to the question thing. And then, of course, I think we need to make it clear that even people with ideas who don't want to show up and sit there could send to Charter Commission info their idea or their issue or whatever. Would you believe, after I bought my giant watch this afternoon, I went home and there was a communication email, I don't know how he got my email, and sent it to me with about 5 different ideas for issues. And this person didn't really even want the name known because, well, I don't know why because. I can guess because. But anyway, he didn't. And so there's still another avenue for us to get input aside from right here. Invited guests or anybody who comes in. I don't like the word transparency, just like I don't want reach out. Transparency is a word that's altogether used too much, and different people have different ideas about transparency. So I'm not going to use that word again. But I think the way that we've tried to move out into the community and give them information they want and opportunities to participate or opportunities to ask questions or opportunities to suggest issues for us to wrestle with. If I've missed a way, for heaven's sake, speak up, because I totally lost the one that you just suggested. Yes, ma'am. Oh, now, how about that? Yes, ma'am. Yes, Lyndon.
At this point, your email addresses are on the website under Charter Commission. Your individual email addresses, which you've given me. I don't know whether you want those to stay there and have a Charter Commission at SAU8. You'll have to let me know.
Yeah.
And then the other piece, which is probably on your list a little further down, is to discuss the fact that this commission is subject to the right to know law. And just
Oh,
make
yeah.
sure to discuss that when you.
Okay. I'm going to digress for a minute. I think that I'm going to make all of you if you will, be gatekeepers, i.e. gatekeepers on dates and issues that we've talked about a little bit, and also people who inform us if we're getting into a difficult or thin ice on right to know. I don't know all the rules. And if we get out on any thin ice, promise me you'll speak right up, because what we don't want is any kind of controversy. That's the last thing. I mean, it just takes away from our work entirely.
One obvious point, Betty, is that if we have our emails public, and I have no problem with that.
Yep.
I won't say transparent, I'll just say people have the right to know what the hell's going on.
I like that.
If there are communications among us that are a reply to all email, that's a public document. So I think just be careful in emails that, if you don't want to see it on the front page of the Concord Monitor or the New York Times tomorrow morning, just be careful.
Right. Well, for example, on this email that I got from an unspecified community member, then what I will do is just simply forward it to you so that it's available to everybody, because we'll deal with those lists sooner or later of the issues that are coming up. And let me see.
Remember, Betty, Yogi Berra said, never answer an anonymous letter.
I know that. I've learned some of things the hard way. And one former superintendent just had her email hacked, and that's out all over the place. And so, we all know the difficulties of IT. The technology sometimes is wonderful, absolutely wonderful, but at other times it's the most miserable thing you can imagine. So our goal is to keep reminding each other and behaving as groups or small groups, subgroups, that we need to be careful of right to know things. Okay, now tonight, Josh was here and told us, he's just next door and he's supplied me with this and all of us with this. And so it's very possible, I didn't know this could take place, but it's very possible. Oh, we're not being shown on TV tonight.
Right.
So you don't have to worry if your hair's a mess. Everything's okay. But the tape, the recording is captured. It is available, and on a night that Linden or any other school district employee could not be here, they take and can look at that tape. And the beauty of that is they can work very carefully with it. They can back it up. They can look. But so we sometimes won't have someone from the school district here, but don't get lax, because we are still being recorded, and the materials will indeed be available, and the final copy will be, how shall we say, put out on the website. Now, next thing I'd like to talk about is some homework from you. And this is really easy. And there's pens over there if you didn't bring one. Anyway, the homework is quite simple. For next time, we'll have a sheet so that when you come in, you can fill it in. But just remind yourself to bring what it is that I would think would help us all a lot. And the first thing is, can you make a list of 1, 2, 3, 4 issues that you have heard or believe, or people have talked to you that they intend to bring up, so that we can get an idea of our workload. And then the second part of that is probably shorter, and that would be, can you make a list of 1 or 2 items that you yourself might want to bring up? And again, when we get to collating those ideas of what it is to expect, as I mentioned before, this is going to be a very, very different set of meetings from the ones 10 years ago, because the most of our issue will be to deal with issues and to work them out. And we can't go out to the voters next November with 42 different items on which they should vote. And so we're going to have to work really hard to find the issues that we believe fit our mission. And we have to work really hard to not necessarily prioritize them, but to say the ones that may have more impact. And then, I'm just letting the cat out of the bag. There's going to have to be a decision from this group right here as to whether they will mandate a meeting again in 10 years. I have no clue how I feel about it. Now, that's rare, because I have an opinion on everything, but not on this one. There's another one you can think about. I'm not going to ask you, but just think about it. So next time when you come, we're just going to give you that little sheet to fill in. What should we expect? By the way of the grapevine or whatever, and then what can we expect of you? And I think last time, hold for just 1 second. I think last time I testified on something, and I got up and went and sat there. And I know that you sat there too once. And so the question is, do we speak from our regular seats, or do we go and act like a public citizen as opposed to a member of? So if you have a strong feeling about that, let me know. Okay, I hope I didn't lose your train of thought.
No, I was just thinking, when you said about too many issues
Yep.
for the voters, if I'm not mistaken, and Bill, you can help me here, any changes we make to the charter, the charter is what goes before the voters. It's not the changes. Is that correct?
Let me just say from last time, and again, I'm sitting next to other lawyers who probably know this better. There will be questions that will be presented to the voters, but ultimately it will be about what's in the charter instrument that's recommended by the commission. But, and if you'll remember, last time, there were 2 questions that were actually precisely worded. And the AG's office reviewed it and said it was okay. And that'll be the same way. So you could get a situation where if everyone wanted, a series of 42 changes, you could actually get a very complicated ballot
Right.
being presented. And that's a consideration for the commission.
But also, people are voting on the charter itself, if I'm not mistaken, or is that not?
They are.
So they're going to vote on the charter and any amendments that change the charter?
That doesn't seem right to me. It
Doesn't seem right to me.
Well, I mean, one of the reasons that you voted, that the citizens had to vote on the whole charter the last time was because the charter was being accepted back from the legislature, so the entire document was part of that vote. Unless there is a change that fundamentally, well, let me just stop for a minute and say, I would think that all that people need to vote on are recommended changes to the charter that exists.
Yeah.
If someone wanted to propose an entirely new charter, then yes.
That's right. So
Yeah.
last time, under this 49B that we were in, the charter revisions have to be presented to the voters in the form of questions for consideration by the voters at the regular election in November next year. So even though we were presenting a full charter, the question was, question 1, shall the school district approve the Concord School District Charter recommended by the School District Charter Commission? So in that case, remember, the charter previously existed only in state law. And what we were doing was creating a document out of whole cloth. So the question was really broad. The second question that went before the voters last time, and I know this because Clint remembers this better, if question 1 is adopted, so you have that charter document, shall the school district approve the charter amendment summarized below? And there was 1 amendment, and that was establish a school board of 3 at-large members and 6 members elected from each of 3 voting, and that was subject to a 60% voting requirement. So there is an art to this of structuring the question so the voters can understand it, but it is presented as a question, not as the whole charter. what you're remembering is, we created the charter the last time. This commission was creating it out of whole cloth.
Well, a question on that. My understanding is that as part of the adoption of a new charter, you were also adopting new procedures for amending the charter that were different from the RSA 49B requirements, or were they the same? Because if they were different, why weren't those put forward as a separate amendment to the charter?
So I think what happened was the 49B allows a body, an electorate, to create a charter that has some discretion. It doesn't mandate a rigid set. Like, for example, if the process of getting an amendment allows for options. And so there were choices before us, which is why Betty's right. It took time where people were saying, like, we were narrowing down every little twist. So 49B allowed you to have a supermajority vote if you were going to propose an amendment to the charter in the future, or a majority vote. And so at each point there were twists. So because we had nothing, Clint, it was presented as a big question. We would not likely get that kind of question through the Secretary of State or the Attorney General, and DRA won't, but those are our three state officials who review the preliminary work, which you get to, and Bill's got the deadlines down, and we can talk about that, get to before we get to the final report. And they would say, that's too broad this time. I think this time it's likely that while there's flexibility, we're going to be working off of a charter document, and probably the questions are going to have to be, it's understanding. The goal is to craft something that the voters really have a chance to understand. And so it probably would be, would you vote to amend the charter to do this? And if that's a discrete issue from another issue, I would guess that the state law would urge us to craft a separate question so that voters have a clear opportunity to express their views on each particular issue, rather than saying, do you approve of these, for example, 10 issues in a glom? I have a feeling that would be hard to get through the Secretary of State's office.
But going back to the charter, I remember last year, Roger Phillips came in with about 10 or little adjustments that he wanted done because it just didn't fit correctly. We go through this charter and we find mistakes and we change them. So, but if we change a bunch of little things in the charter, we still don't have to put the charter, that's just an automatic change that will happen without any vote?
No, every change to the document that's currently in place will require a vote of the public voters, or else it will not be adopted.
Even a spelling error?
Yeah, technical corrections don't, this is like the Constitution of the United States. Granted, that's a more important document, but
Oh, we gotta change our clothes.
but
If we're gonna make
But
a
what you can
constitution.
do, Bill, is you could craft a question, and I've seen this before. Question would be that, shall the school district, I'm just using as an, approve a group of amendments that eliminate language about 2010 that is no longer necessary. And that could maybe cover 5 different places. So if we're clever about how we craft and group questions, we can eliminate, do you want to cross this T? The voters, you could create a housekeeping thing with, as long as you don't run into any risk that the grouping was designed to mislead or mispresent the information.
And that would require a 60% vote?
Actually, I have to look, the answer is yes.
I thought so.
That's what I think we did in the last charter.
Can I ask a question just to make sure I understand? So the last time the charter was created whole cloth and voted on as one question. The second question had to do with the composition of the school board. Why, and this may be a stupid question, but why wasn't that just a part of the commission, the charter? Why was it drafted as an amendment as opposed to part of the charter?
So I have an answer to that, but I'm going to look to Clint because I know the chair knows about. If you'd like to take a shot at answering that
No,
question.
I forgot everything.
So sorry. Okay.
That's why I'm glad we have 3 attorneys on this board.
Yeah.
I mean, it's clear that we're going to really.
I
lean
can't
on-
remember, Bill,
So-
I
so-
just know that that's how it outlooked.
It was an interesting background, and this is kind of some of the fun of constitutional conventions or charter conventions where you're working with the core document. So the first part of your question dealt with, we created the charter out of whole cloth. Let me just take one step back and say, there was a charter, but it was embodied in state law, so it didn't exist as this separate charter document like other
You had to
municipal
extricate it.
government.
Right.
You had to kind of take it, and it just existed, and there was the only way you could change it was to pass a bill.
Right.
And that's how it, in the history, in the document that Lyndon circulated, had some of that. So along comes this group 10 years ago that had people like Marty Honenberg, former mayor
Bob
Mike
Guile,
Donovan,
Jesse
Bob Guile,
Osborne, Kathy
and
Connor.
Charlie Chuck Douglas. It was at the time where there was some controversy, which was my wife's time in the school where I was building 3 elementary schools. So there was a lot of attention and focus. So in the discussion, the proposal for ward voting was not immediately clear that the group was going to support it.
Yeah, that I do remember.
And so there was this nudging back and forth as everybody was in good faith at the table wanted to put together something that would reach agreement, because the failure to reach agreement meant you would not recommend anything to the voters. So a group on the board led by, very ably by Mike Donovan was strongly in favor of ward voting. Another group, not so much. So the compromise, Kate, ended up being, we approved 2 questions. The first in time was the core issue of substituting a local amendment procedure for the state legislature. And that had a whole charter that was now going to be outside. But that document did not have word voting in it. It had at-large voting. The second question was, do you want to amend that document that just passed in time, literally milliseconds before? And on therefore, people go, well, what do we need to pass the ward voting thing by Concord voters? They said, well, we got to look to the procedure that was just adopted, which was a 60% majority. So there was debate on the commission. I don't want this to be presented in 2 chunks. And then there was an agreement that said we should present this to the Concord voters, but it's going to have to be treated as a real amendment, because prior to that, it was all at large.
Yep.
And so there was this debate, and that's how it happened.
Right.
And those 2 questions, which were in the preliminary report with the material that Linda said around, they had no problem with the three officials, even though there was shock, some lobbying going on with people who felt differently in the community. It was quite controversial, but the remarkable thing was the way that group worked together. I mean, literally, we had a 9-0 vote on the preliminary report, and at the end, on the final 1 vote, that was uncertain enough to say, I just don't want to put my name on it, but 8 did, and that's what went to the voters.
I still got the scars.
No, it was not bad, but that's the weird story. Fun stuff, right?
Bill, I think that was my recommendation to try to get us together, was the.
Which is why I offered it to you,
I know,
because
but
you.
I didn't
the-
know what
the
you were
truth is-
leading up to.
The truth is, you did,
Yeah.
you really tried to
He saved the
bridge
commission.
the gap.
I did.
I think we just got to pay attention to those amendment requirements as we go through this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And that leads me to the next thing. Clearly, not every member of this commission right now have Esquire after their name. And we are absolutely thrilled and happy that we have a number of people who are attorneys, because reading that stuff is not easy. And I'm already seeing the vestiges, if you will, of our meeting, our agenda next time. I think that we will definitely need to talk about, we'll have to invite the clerks, we'll have to invite the Concord School District, and that'll be about an hour's worth of time. Then you're gonna have your little sheets to fill out. And then I think the next thing is, ladies and gentlemen, regardless of who you are here, if you look through your charter in your packet of materials, and you look through the other materials, and you have any questions, any clarifications, any notes of time sensitivity, jot them down out in the margin, and then we'll have a discussion about that, because we want everybody on the same page as we start forward. And so the second meeting will be partially input, but the second part, the next meeting, will undoubtedly be basically taking care of questions and then planning our strategy and timing, because we'll begin to have a feeling of exactly what we have to do, about how many issues we'll have to work with. And you're gonna hear this time and time again. This commission is 75% different than the last commission, maybe even more. It's a totally different mission, it's a totally different focus. The process is similar, but the task at hand is quite different. And I'm sure that we're not gonna get complacent and think this is all a piece of cake. They did all the hard work last time. All we did was just dent the system, and now this time is our turn to dent the system. And before we leave tonight, one from one another, now that we have bonded, we're gonna
You know
have
what,
to.
Betty, can I just, sorry,
no,
just
no.
interrupt. I wanted to follow up. So one option, just so I spoke one option, if this group decided that it just wanted to completely redo the charter from scratch, you can present a new charter completely. I misheard I was worried if you were saying you gotta make some amendments to it, then those tend to be separate questions. But if everyone wanted to completely throw it out and start new, you could actually present an entire new charter.
Well, I don't see anybody leaping over their desk ready to do that.
I will not be presenting.
I subscribe, as a former mentor of mine used to say, that the Duke of Cambridge once said, any change in anything for any reason is to be deplored. So,
So, poor Bill, I'm not even gonna give him any warning, but before we get to the part prior to our leaving, and that is deciding, what night, where, what time, all of those things. And we also have to understand that we have to fit into a school district reservation system here, right here for this building and this room. So before we get into that, Bill seems to have stacks of things there. Were you intending to distribute them, or?
Well, one of the things, just preparing, and I think Bill has already prepared for this by reading the actual timing, we might all want to just go through together what the actual legal timing requirements are, so we can kind of get a sense. And then, Betty, what you saw, we in May, which was after the preliminary report last time,
Yep.
we prepared a little 2-page thing of the timing that we went through, which is exactly the same timing. And
Yeah.
it's an example of something that actually got to the voters. And assuming everyone's okay with it, I brought copies we could distribute, and Lyndon can have one put in the record if everyone felt. But I think Bill has looked at,
we could take that and update it to current. So we have to have a public
Yeah.
meeting within 14 days.
Well, that's why I said we needed gatekeepers on our
The
timetables.
The preliminary report is due, I have April 22nd of 2022, and the final report I have as June 22nd, 2022.
Oh, yeah.
So that's just based on the April 22nd date. I may have calculated wrong, but it's 170 days after the election, And the June 22nd date is 231 days after the event.
Well, I don't have that many fingers, so I'm glad you did that.
I do have a couple of questions before we adjourn, Betty.
Well, fire away.
So, how long are our meetings going to be, and when do they start? And my suggestion is that we start the meetings at 7:30. It's a little bit late, and limit them to 2 hours. The school board meets at 5:30, and that is really inconvenient for a lot of people. Now, I don't know what the most convenient time is for people who have young kids, but we want to maximize the number of people who come to the meetings. So I'm sure others will have very different views of this. I think we limit it to 2 hours each time, and we can have as many meetings as we want. And we will get tired, and there'll be diminishing returns. You remember
Exactly.
You remember the good old days when we met until 1 or 2 in the morning on the school board. So that would be one
And you didn't
proposal.
accomplish much. No, I would have to agree. I don't think we can say that we'll always do it in an hour and a half, but I think that if we're in the range of 1.5 to 2 hours, that people will have been focusing so much on very intricate material sometimes, you know, your brain gets tired after a while. And you do have children, and you do have meals to eat, and dishes to do, and all kinds of things. This is still a volunteer job, and we need to make it manageable for everyone.
Lyndon? Lyndon has a question.
Yes, I'm sorry.
So I brought the school board room calendar for the
Okay.
next couple of months. I wanted to suggest that the commission avoid meeting on Mondays and Wednesdays. Those are school board meeting nights. Very occasionally, the school board meetings happen on Tuesdays, but they almost never happen on Thursdays. So I don't think it would be wise to schedule any commission meeting thinking that a school board meeting might end on time, even a committee meeting.
Yeah, no, I
If
agree.
they started at
I agree.
5:30 and you thought they'd be done by 7:30 and they're not, you're.
I think we have to have
So-
another meeting by December 1st, so if we did it on the 30th of November,
Right,
that would
30th is
be-
already taken, they moved the committee meeting to the 30th, from a Wednesday to a Tuesday, but I have the entire list. Typically, Thursdays tend to be more open. I don't, it's up to you what time your start time would be. But I wouldn't recommend starting before 5:30, because there are late afternoon meetings, as there were today, that there were still people here when we arrived. I can reserve this room for Thursdays. I could send out a list of all of the available dates. Of course, there are holidays that are going to be in the way. There's winter break time, there's spring break time. So I can send out that list and you can all take a look at it. I don't know whether you were thinking of meeting once a week, once every 2 weeks, I'm not sure.
so
I have
today's the
the calendar here,
17th.
and
We
I
have to
can
have a
follow
meeting
your
before
calendar
December
now and take a
1st.
look.
Before December 1st, oh, that should, well, unless there's okay. Well, I'm just gonna back up. Understanding that we do have certain complications with reserving this room, I still think it's the best place to be, because all the materials are here, and
Yeah,
it's,
we don't have recording equipment anywhere else.
yeah, okay. So we're all set, that we'll be here, but you hold the master document in your hand that tells about available dates. Then could we just set another, well, let's go to time. I'm retired, I can eat it anytime, but
You know,
it's
Betty,
not that easy.
The meeting, the rule that we have to meet before December 1st, I think that the only 2 dates we can meet are the 23rd and the 30th. And if the school board has something, we just meet later.
Yeah.
But we've got Thursday's Thanksgiving, we can't meet then. So we only have 2 real dates in the near future to go. And we need to just kind of ask ourselves, can that be done?
Would you repeat those 2 dates again?
The 23rd, they're Tuesdays.
23rd,
The
okay.
23rd or the 30th, and the 30th is the last day we can meet before we're violating the
Do we have
rules of the
sufficient
charter.
time under the right to know law to notice the meeting for the 23rd?
Yeah, there's another
Even if
thing.
you do, it would be better, because Bill's right. This rule is the one that says there's only one limitation on when we have meetings, and this one is within 14 days after the organizational meeting, the Charter Commission shall hold a public meeting for the purpose of receiving public input. So I think we should, on Clint's 2 days, there's only one day, which is the later one.
Can we
The
do it
30th.
in the high school auditorium?
I think the 30th
We
is
don't
open,
really
isn't it?
Have recording equipment set up.
I
for
thought that
We
Lyndon-
do
Isn't,
it
I thought
totally.
Lyndon-
isn't
I
the
thought you-
30th open?
The 30th, the Communications and Policy Committee moved their meeting to the 30th, but we could ask them to be done by 7:30 and start your meeting at 7:30. You know, I obviously have to check with that
Yeah.
chair of that committee whether she could commit to that.
Well, you know,
But it is open
there's
after that.
9 members here that have to, 10 members. Can you make it? Can anybody at the committee make it?
30th?
The 30th.
I can.
Tuesdays are always a better night for me, just with kids. My husband works every Thursday night.
So let's try to do the
Okay, you
Tuesday.
said Thursday, November 30th,
No, Tuesday.
Tuesday, November 30th at 7:30.
7:30.
But you would,
I'll have to make
you,
sure.
yeah, to clear the room, so they'd go and we'd come.
And you don't think the 23rd is enough public notice?
I think we already heard that some people can't be here.
Oh, okay.
No,
23rd.
I was just thinking, even if, I actually was not, I'm terrible at calculating time periods. What is the time period of notice before a meeting?
So for school board meetings, it's 24 hours. For a public hearing, I think it's 14 days. But in terms of your meetings, I'm not sure why it would be more than 24 hours. I don't know what the rule would be for
Well, if we could get a ruling on that.
The
might-
one thing here is, and I'll just be honest, I'm not gonna be able to make this meeting just because of prior schedule, I'm out of state. But that's okay, right? This is the important meeting, the first one. There will be other meetings with public input. You just wanna make sure you give the public enough time. So even if we could do it with 24 hours, it probably wouldn't be a good idea. Because the public it would kind of undermine the
Yeah.
purpose. So
Well, I can
if
post
people
this
can
tomorrow.
do the 30th, minus me, because I apologize up front for that, that would be the best date, because it's the one that is a Tuesday. If we can just wiggle the school board, that gets us the most time for that first meeting, and it looks good afterwards, that we were really getting a notice out early, so people can chat about it and get ready and come to it.
I'll
think
notice it tonight.
The other thing is that the Tuesday before Thanksgiving is the Tuesday before Thanksgiving.
Exactly.
And there's no
That's
school on Wednesday, so I'm
That's
guessing it's not what the
It's not a
superintendent is hoping to do that night.
Agreed.
It
And
doesn't look good.
Agreed.
Fair point.
others
So I have another
in the
question,
community.
which is, if people are fine with sort of 2 hours and 7:30, would it make sense to, at the first meeting,
Yep.
have representatives of the school board, superintendent,
Yeah,
so limit that meeting to the school board?
just them.
And then the next meeting, although this is maybe in violation of the charter because it talks about an informational meeting, suggest to people at the beginning of the meeting that we're going to have another meeting. We're going to schedule it for this time, and we can get information from people down the road. But first, let's hear from the people who are closest to this, and that will engender, I think, a lot of discussion from members of the public. And then we'll go into public meetings, in another 14 days or whatever. It just, now,
Yeah.
it just feels to me like that's a logical way to proceed.
Yeah. Okay.
Just one last
Well,
point.
let's just
Okay.
Yeah,
say
let's
all
get-
the parts so that everybody has written down the same thing. So we're talking about Tuesday, November 30th at 7:30, and we will have as our guests that night, hopefully, the school board, which would be probably no more than a half-hour block. Then we have another hour from 8 to 9 to make sure that people know that we've begun, and their turn is coming up soon.
I'm sorry,
I didn't
you want
say
the
that
school
well.
board to come?
No.
Not the
you
whole school
mean
board, but what do we talk about? The
The
superintendent,
superintendent and,
The-
Jim
the
and,
chair of the school board,
And finance, you said.
and the
Well,
finance.
2 of the 3
Right,
are already being.
but I'm not sure that Jim is even gonna talk. I think he's just attending.
Do we
And-
mind looking forward into December? Because just with kids' school sports
I agree
and
with
that,
it,
the
yeah.
further we go out, the easier.
The better, yeah.
Well, actually, I'm gonna let Lyndon handle that because you've got the, I mean, the request was, can
Right.
we schedule into December?
So looking at Tuesdays, Tuesday, December 7th is open. Tuesday, December 14th is open. Tuesday, December 21st is open. The 28th is a holiday, the office is closed. So that takes, for Tuesdays, that covers December.
I don't think schedule it in the week of Christmas. think
No,
that-
I would say the 14th seems like a nice, it's school's still in session, it's the last week, everyone's still around,
But-
people are still thinking school.
What are we talking about in terms of frequency?
That
That's
is
the
what-
question. So if we're talking about meeting on the 30th, are we talking about
Every 2
just
weeks.
meeting once in December? Are we talking about trying to meet every other week? What is
So that would
the-
be the only available December date, really, if the school district's closed between Christmas and the
On
New
a
Year.
Tuesday it is.
Yeah,
Nancy, my
But there's a
suggestion,
difference between availability and desire for meeting.
Yeah,
yeah,
And we need to sort the both things.
right.
I think, wouldn't it make sense to have these first two meetings and then see what happens? Because
sure.
if 3 people show up for the public session, then it may be that we don't need a lot of subsequent meetings.
Yeah, okay.
If we get enough people so that not everybody has a chance to speak, then we'll clearly have to have more meetings. And I think actually it would make sense, even if we don't get many people to that December 14th meeting or whatever, to schedule a meeting in January so that people who weren't around in December.
I think that's a good, I was just
Yeah.
gonna say that, yep. Just schedule one for January and then take stock.
Play it by ear.
Yeah,
Okay, so going into January, the board meeting is on the 4th, a Tuesday, because the previous day is a holiday. So the 4th is out. The 11th is open, the 18th is open, the 25th is open.
maybe the 11th. if we-
11 sounds good.
Yeah, so December 14th and January 11th, are we saying?
And do we like 7:30, or does anyone feel like we would like to go a little bit earlier? I know that as someone who gets up at 5 in the morning with the kids, I
Yeah,
wouldn't
I'd be
mind being
thrilled to
earlier.
have it be a little earlier, but I am also mostly retired, so I get that there's,
Right. I mean, I'll do what the
Whatever,
majority, but if we could push it.
7:30 is not the problem for me, it's 9:30, it's that I'm,
I
I'm
mean-
losing
Like,
it
if we
by
could do
that time.
6:30 or 7 even, that's.
Yeah, I'm okay with 7. I think, the
Seven?
point is, I think
That'd be great.
these 5:30 meetings that we had,
Way too early.
people haven't gotten home
Yeah.
from work, they're,
Yeah.
you know, whatever. And we certainly heard enough complaints when I was on the school board about how you're really not giving people a fair shot to get to these
Yeah.
meetings.
Is 7 something?
Would work for me.
7?
7 makes sense, I think.
I think you need to vote.
Yeah,
Not on the
but I-
30th, that can't be before 7:30, but I think you need to vote, generally speaking, on your meeting time. Will it be at 7 o'clock
Are
on
we,
these days?
are we definite on November 30th, or yes or no?
7:30.
At 7:30? Okay, that's one.
Yeah,
Okay, then I think I heard December 14,
7
And-
o'clock.
January 11.
The
7
11th doesn't
o'clock.
work great for me, but I know I'm one person, so, I'm sure
You've
there's
got
good,
the, right, yeah.
but
And I want to just go back to the example that we went through 10 years ago. We had a total of 11 public meetings, 10 public meetings between November the 19th, the organization meeting, and April 18th. This is going to be about the same. That was 11 meetings when we were dealing with some really
Big
hard issues. And we took public input at every meeting except the last one.
And
So
then-
that's, just to know, we don't have to stack up. We can have some flexibility and say, because there's meetings where you may not want to have public input and just have discussion. But in general, every time, does anyone from the public want to speak, which the school board kind of does too. So just as that example, we don't have to stack them up finally, but getting a few on
On
the
the
calendar,
books.
including the 30th, obviously, and the 14th, that's really good, but let's make sure everyone knows Those are really focused on public input.
I do think it's important for the commission to decide going out, because I don't want that to get booked. Even if you don't need the meeting, at
Yep.
least it'll be reserved for you.
can do it.
So, anyway, I think we've gotten, I'm sorry, Betty, but you've got a decision about the 30th at 7:30. We have the 14th, but you didn't decide on a time yet, for sure.
I think we were saying 7.
7 o'clock at that meeting.
7 o'clock, okay.
But January 11th was a problem for Kate. Is there any reason why we couldn't do the 18th the following week? I mean,
So 34 days, something between them.
I'm just, you know, the only reason I suggested that, Nancy, is just get some time in between to, you know, sort of absorb public comment, whatever it is. It doesn't matter to me.
just,
The 18th is a great day. It's the first day of the semester.
I'm staying quiet because I can do most any, so I'm deferring to those who have real
The
problems.
18th works for me.
And you just need to speak up as
Yeah.
you are. And then when you get it all decided, just let me know.
So the 18th of January.
Okay, I got it now.
at 7.
Got it.
At 7.
So December 14th, January 18th, both at 7.
Okay.
And the 30th of November at 7:30.
Correct. I would recommend a couple of more dates on the books, only because these rooms do
Book up.
actually book up, believe it or not. So I would suggest February 1, maybe February 22nd. The week after that is the winter recess, so we couldn't do it then. But that gives you 3 weeks in between those two meetings. Does that
Mhm.
work for people?
That's good.
Tuesday the 1st of February, Tuesday the 22nd of February at 7.
I'm sorry, one more time, Lyndon?
Tuesday the February 1st at 7 and Tuesday, February 22nd at 7. And that way you've booked, what, 5 meetings? And-
Yeah,
That's good.
Gotta
that's
be
probably,
Make that public.
Yep, I'll post those.
Great.
We can decide in December.
Exactly.
We'll have a better idea
Yeah.
of what the world looks like going forward.
whether we need more, yeah, okay.
And how
Sounds good.
frequent and how much public.
This is fun, I'm just sitting here. No, seriously.
You're doing a fine job.
But we're on schedule, roughly speaking, right, Bill, with our previous.
Yes,
Um,
that's very good.
I guess, usually I'm an optimist, but on this one, I'm a little bit of a pessimist, because over the last 10 years, I've seen a public in Concord that has been far more vocal on a huge number of issues, many of which we could have done without, but people are more willing to be informed and to let their opinions be known. And so I'm just a little bit concerned that we don't get jammed up at the end, because we have to have time to put that preliminary report together and have it all Jake before it goes anywhere. So it may be that we're a little bit busy in March, for example, to be playing catch-up if we have to, but we'll do it, I know. And if you're comfortable with what we've just talked about, I'm there 100%. And Lyndon, do you feel like you've got the reflection of the group? Oh, good.
I'll post these
Okay.
tonight or tomorrow morning. Do you want me to send out an email to remind everybody the dates and the times?
That would be
you agree
great.
on, if
That'd
you
be
don't mind?
nice.
And we'll be working really, really hard on getting information out. It's difficult in a day when we have a newspaper that's struggling. It's difficult in a day when many people don't take the print paper anymore. It's difficult in the days when they may or may not look at it, from their computer. So it's hard to judge how much we can get out, how much excitement, how much eagerness we can have for people to come back. But we need to be here if they're going to be here. And we'll be able to judge that, I think, rather early, and time our meetings such that it will always have public input. We'll just control those two bodies that we talked about and get them here.
You know, Betty, I've had someone come up to me with 2 or 3 suggestions, and I don't think they feel like coming before the boards, but I think if we just round up all the questions that come forward.
Exactly.
And that way we can answer them. one way or
And
the
right,
other.
and we can time them ourselves.
Yes.
And we can publicize them among ourselves
Mm-hmm.
so that we know what the issue is and you've had a chance to think about it, research it.
Mm-hmm.
I have some research I've already done on a matter that I feel strongly, but this is what we need to do. If people don't want to come, especially if it's wintertime, and the roads are bad or something, but yeah, if we can collect the issues and schedule them, and at the same time schedule our time here with your help. I think this is probably one of the more difficult things we've done. It's only taken about 15 minutes. No, seriously, it's very hard to have 9 busy people, agree on a place, time, and date. And so this is an accomplishment in and of itself.
Clint, I do think when people say they don't want to come before the committee, encourage them to do so, because we are then able to ask them questions and get input from them as opposed to simply providing an issue.
I will
I mean,
go.
obviously we can't make anybody come if they don't want to.
Yeah, I will. I'll ask them to. Up here.
Well, are we all set?
Almost, I just have one question. If you could reiterate, in terms of communications, we've all gotten emails or whatever. Tom's just thanks Lyndon for all you're doing, that kind of thing. Do I delete that? Do I keep that? What do I keep? What do I say? Plain, we're gonna be
I
texting,
wouldn't
emailing.
delete anything.
What's that?
I wouldn't delete anything that relates to the Charter Commission. That's the safest bet, right? But, I mean, just tell you from litigation that, people are not gonna care much about, can we schedule a meeting for X date? But if they think you're not preserving all your email, that's a problem. So I would say, and, when we get emails from the general population, we ought to forward those to everybody on the commission, perhaps without comment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like this is the craziest idea I've ever heard of. Or this person is a nut, so don't listen to it.
No. If I could just supplement that, it is really clear that you should never try to communicate with the members of this commission as a group by email. That's not permitted under the right to know law. So don't, like in the future, remember, we just organized today, that saying thank you to Lyndon for her unbelievable work is okay. But in the future, I would just suggest to everybody not to do that.
I thought that was if there's a quorum.
Yes,
communicated with
individually you can do it, but even in that case, Lyndon, the bottom line standard is government action in the sunshine. And if you think that you're going down a path that could be talking about something important that might affect more than, like, you shouldn't do seriatim, Lyndon. One of the mistakes that government bodies get into with that reading of the rule is, I'm going to talk to Nancy separately, then I'm going to talk to Eric separately, and that's a violation. You can't do seriatim getting around. So the bottom line is, when we communicate together about things that matter to the public on our task, where we're elected officials on, we should do it in public with us all present and let people hear it. And
So maybe, Eric, to go back to undo a little bit of what I said a moment ago, if we get comments from the general population, maybe the smartest thing to do is just forward them to Lyndon.
correct.
Yeah.
And then she has them and we can discuss them at the next meeting.
Yeah, and I did need a clarification on anything that was germane to actual business, but more along the lines of, where is, again, thanks, Lyndon.
Yeah.
I want an absolute clarification on, okay, so,
Another suggestion that I have is that the district uses Google Drive, I don't know if you're familiar with that, and I can create a folder and give a link to all of you and keep that kind of a comment, for example, in that folder, so that you don't have to go sorting through emails. Where was the comment from Joe about this on that date, where I can actually put that in the folder. I don't know if that would be helpful.
That would be great.
I won't necessarily be able
document
to
that is.
sort
It
things
is.
out, but at least
It's a
it'll all
document, should
be in
be
one place. I don't know if that works or if that's worse.
I think it works as long as everyone knows that everything in that drive is a public document that's available to the public and in one way or another, and that's an obligation on the person maintaining it. So if we have access to a document on the Google Drive, but the public doesn't, that's a problem. And the public needs to have access to the documents that are affecting the decision-making of members of this board. That's the spirit.
So the way that works logistically, however, Bill, is that I can't send a link out to the public.
And
But
I think
what I
that's,
can do is respond to a public request for that document. That's generally, I don't want to run afoul of
Well, one
this,
option is to let the public know at our first meeting that
there are
comments that are
documents they can
provided
look at.
to individual members or to the website will be put on a Google Drive, and if you want access to that information, let us know, whether we do it by hard copy or however we do it, but.
so this
you know,
gets to Eric's point a little bit. There are members of the public who are going to not be comfortable speaking publicly. That's just the way it is. And they may have elected and voted for you because they trust that you would carry forward an idea and express it in the proper way. If they send a written document to the commission in there, I think we should forward if it's intended to be a public comment, we should forward it to Lyndon. And ultimately, the safest bet, even though digital world is to have it brought before the commission at a meeting and distributed as part of the public documents
And in the minutes.
and in the minutes. And so,
Lyndon, can you do that in a PDF format on the Charter Commission website? Just create a folder called Public Comment and just put things in there.
I don't think I can on the website, but I can look into it.
Could you put the link to the Google Drive on the website and make it public, or?
I don't know about that either, because the IT department has its own rules and
Yeah.
regulations
we don't want to do that.
about security,
Yeah.
ability to be
Can't
hacked,
do that.
hacking our system. I don't know the answer to that.
I don't
but
think
I could check into it.
now, the more I think about the Google Doc thing, it makes me uncomfortable. It seems to me that what Bill just described is the way we should attempt to handle any and all comments. They end up here, and then they end up in the minutes. The minutes are posted. I mean, the minutes are
Well, the comments aren't included in the minutes per se.
no, but maybe they're referred to or they're summarized so that at least it feels more, I'm sorry, Betty, transparent to me to have that handled in that way than to have a separate document that is not easily accessed by the public. They can't access it, and we just let them know it's there and they have to request it. It feels like we're putting barriers up. I don't know.
But that is the way the district works. I mean, we have thousands of documents. We
Yeah,
don't-
yeah.
We don't put them out there for the public, but they
that's-
can request them.
That's different. That's different than the meetings and communications that are part of the meetings from the public. I think having, like, for example, we have the charter document, and that's gonna be on the website, and people can find it or ask for it. But when you get an email communication, which is like a testimony, where the person, now, that's not, hi Nancy, are we going to dinner tonight at 6 o'clock? Yes. Hey, one thing would be, when are you having your next meeting?
Yeah.
That doesn't have to get in the public record. That's a relationship with each of us as representatives to the community. But when someone says, I would really like this comment
To come
to
before
be
the board.
included
Right,
in the
right,
record,
yeah.
could you submit it? That shouldn't be hidden in a Google Drive. That should be somehow formally presented and included,
Yeah.
incorporated in the proceedings of a meeting.
So is there a way to have those included in the meeting, but also get them ahead of time so we have time to process all the comments? Because I see myself getting read all these comments at the meeting and not having time to really
Yeah, to
sort
process.
through them.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm a more responsible member of this board if I've had time to process the comments ahead of time.
Absolutely. Though as soon as, but going through Lyndon to do it, rather than, I got this letter and wants everyone to see it, and then forward it from us to every, so I was the source of that preliminary report, because it had all that history, but I didn't send it to all of you. I would send it to Lyndon and begged her kindly to distribute it. I think that's the basic model that you want to follow, and then that will be on the agenda, Tracy, which hopefully says this is a comment to be considered at the next meeting, and, you know, people have access to it.
In our
and so-
packet ahead of
And
time.
people, so if you read it before the meeting, so can a member, an interested member of the public. That's basically the rule.
Let's see how this works.
Yep.
Yeah.
Can I ask I don't mean to throw a grenade at the last minute, but we've set up these meetings for public comment. You know, in the last 18 months, a lot of public meetings have had a virtual component to allow more people to be able to provide public comment. Is that something we can consider? Because I think it is important that we hear what people have to say, and there are some people who are probably not comfortable still coming out, coming to a group
We have the
meeting.
technology to do it.
We do not have the technology or the
Here's
staff.
Josh is going to answer
Josh,
that
man.
question.
I mean, Josh can technically do it, but we've had difficulties in terms of staffing. We don't have people trained to do it, so it was all him.
I think I have a mic back here that I can, at least for the public record, in my opinion, I don't think we have the technical resources. It can be done in a pinch if we had to. I know school board had someone who called in, like a school board member call in, but when it's the public, it's who's moderating and making sure that there aren't Zoom bombers, as they call it, or, you know, who's running that, you know. Am I running it back here, but I'm not an employee of the school district? Is Lyndon running it? I know Jack has run it. It just, to me, it's not quite feasible, given the resources we have.
Good question.
Um,
The other issue was that,
So-
I think it was the communications committee that considered a legal document from the district's attorney regarding liabilities that the district would be subject to provide virtual access for all of its meetings, absent the governor's executive order that exempted them from that liability. And the liability encompassed basically the entire world, where the district would have to guarantee uninterrupted internet coverage for everyone, everywhere, to access that meeting. Otherwise, they would have the liability of not doing so. And the legislature has not seen fit to make any amendment to that law regarding liability. So I can provide that document to people. That it's actually on our website, I believe, because that is a big consideration for the school board. And there were reasons that the school board voted against doing so, or they didn't vote against it, but they didn't take it up because those issues were unresolved.
It's a great question, Kate. It's not at all about, it's on the back of my mind. But the open Zoom communications for all public bodies was happening under the auspices of that
Right, of the
executive order.
Yep.
And so without it, there are some bodies, like University System in New Hampshire, is saying as long as you have a quorum of the body present, you can have other members participate by Zoom, as long as everyone can hear it. But there are these issues that Lyndon, brilliant, mentioned about, well, what does that mean in terms of what you have to offer to the public? And it gets very, I think the standard is right now, until the legislature does something different, public meetings. The legislature is struggling through this right now.
Well, I have a question that I think might, you know, I'm just thinking technically, and Josh can answer this, but the school board meetings are broadcast live, aren't they, now?
Yeah, yes,
I
usually.
think so.
If you broadcast these meetings live, and nobody watches it, that's all right, but if someone sitting there watching it has a question, and we say that you can text a question
Into the group.
into the group,
I would not do that.
That becomes a public record.
We have our
Who's
work to
doing
do.
that? I mean, who's monitoring that?
You.
well, I tried.
Yeah, that's
Up until recently, I was the chair of the Board of New Hampshire Humanities. We had programs where we had 1,200 people on a Zoom call. And you can do that just because you sign up for the meeting and you get the link to the Zoom call. And it works fine. But let's first find out, A, whether we've got 1,200 people who want to watch these meetings. B, someone raises the issue of, well, we want to be able to participate virtually. I think we could rent a big screen that we could just use a computer for. But let's
Let's see how it unfolds. Yeah.
Okay.
This has been stimulating. I'd like to just sort of bring us back around. Lyndon has the agreed upon dates, times, locations. I'd like to pick up on one thing that Bill said, and that is we need to make sure that this public, this taxpayer group, knows that they have public input. And I understand why the school board does as it does. Public input on agenda items only before the agenda is brought up on anything. But the people who come and wait 2.5 hours to speak on any item, I am suggesting that we make public input first with only 2 exceptions. One exception would be when we invite the school district people in, and the second one would be probably on a different night when we invite Roger and or Patrick or whatever. And then otherwise, we put the public first. Public indications of interest and issues that they want to raise will come up first, and then we will do our other work, whatever that is, afterwards, Tom.
So I think that's a great idea. The school board also limits the amount of time that folks can speak to about 5 minutes. We had talked about earlier giving folks up to 20 minutes. I think that during those times that we're asking for public input or allowing public input, I think it would be, just make great sense that we say, oh, we're going to try to keep you to 5 minutes.
Right, and I think it's easily covered by, we're delighted to see so many people here tonight. We don't want you to have to come back, that you're here, and if we all take a little less time and get a little more focused in what we do, we can hear all of you. And then, as interest peters out and people have been here, and we're into meetings in March, and deciding upon those things, issues we've heard. But yes, we'll worry about whether it's 5 minutes or 8 minutes or 10 minutes when we judge how many people we have here.
And I think just a rule of reason, and then, if people start repeating things, the chair can say, with respect, we got a lot of other people who want to speak, and
I told you I was a redhead.
The Concord, the school board, when I watch the meetings, which I'll admit I'm that one person watching sometimes, but they're inconsistent with how they follow through on whether they're going to respond to public comment in real time or not. It seems to be some days they do, some days they don't, sometimes they do, sometimes. Personally, I'm of the mindset that you let the public comment and you don't respond until you move past that portion of the agenda and into the actual meeting, but I don't know what others think about that.
We'll respond to the response. How's that? That when people are here in great numbers, we'll take care of it, and then when they're not, we'll be doing other things. I do have a funny story to tell you. A number of years ago, the terminology used in the agenda for the Concord School Board, it used to be audience participation, and then it was changed to public input. And the superintendent at the time said, audience participation sounds to me like the Gong Show. We've got to change those words.
But that's a good idea, if we had a gong.
Well, I didn't go there.
Betty, this is a technical question, but
go ahead.
It's nice, like the school board publishes their agenda, the topics they're going to cover that next meeting.
Yes.
And are we organized enough yet to do something like that?
I think that we would plan to have that under notifications, okay, on the website. And when we get timely minutes, and I think our discussion here proves more than anything that minutes are truly, truly important. I mean, we can't pay enough attention to them. And I'm so delighted that we have the cooperation from the Concord School District to let Lyndon work with us on either an on-job thing or a private contract with her in order to give us the benefit of her experience and her understanding of the issues that we have. So I think we will be able to have a tentative agenda. It won't be as detailed as Concord School Board. But when we get to the point where we may be talking about particular issues, we could list that, the issue of whatever. So let that develop. Would that be all right? As we're able to develop an agenda and have it published prior to. Yeah, go ahead.
So just to respond to Kate, and I don't want to beat a dead horse here tonight, but one of the things that I think the Concord School Board, of which I was a member during the time, during our real difficult times, I think we hurt ourselves by not responding to certain questions, and so I would feel good about, as much as possible, responding quickly and efficiently to folks when they speak, and then move on.
Okay, right. So, yeah, well, there are two rules of thought on that. You came to tell us something, we're going to listen.
Sure.
But what you don't want to get into is a debate.
Right.
However, if somebody asks a very legal and important question, there's nothing to prevent you from answering that. Although I would not like it to get into a debate at that time, because the debate, it takes place here afterwards.
And I think that's your job after that, is to say, we'll cut it here and we'll pick it up again later if we need to. But I think just to give folks that quick satisfaction that we're not trying to be evasive, that we're not trying to hide anything, we'll answer your question as best we can. We're going to move on.
Yep, okay.
So,
And
Tom,
the
I
other
think
thing is,
there's a danger in that, okay? The danger in quick responses, and I agree with you, there's certain things we're just gonna need to respond to. It may not be as important as ones the school board had on their plate, but the problem is, if you answer right away, you end up with 9 perspectives on the issue as opposed to the perspective of the commission. That's what I think. You wanna make sure that when we respond, we do it in a formal way. Because we may disagree.
yeah. Yes, we may.
I'm thinking of getting the word out about what we're talking about at the next meeting. I think if we develop some sort of a rapport, I still read the Concord Monitor, and I think a lot of people in town do. If we can just ask the Monitor or call and just maybe develop a rapport to say next meeting, send an email to the Concord Monitor and say next meeting is such and such date, and we're hoping to cover these topics. No more than that. But if that can get and if it can't, could we buy a section of the Monitor to put it in?
Well, yes, I'm not beyond doing that. I
think they're here right now.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm directing that at you, if you would help.
But the thing that we have to remember is that we're all in this together.
Yeah.
And if something is moving along in a way that looks like it should be taking a different turn, then you just speak up.
Yeah.
But, there's nothing special about my chair. I can swap chairs with any one of you. So, no, seriously. And we're all in this together. And if something seems to be going off on a path that we've talked about we don't want to take, or we don't want to be in a position to do X, then, leap in, help us out, help us all out. And that's probably a pretty good place to think about stopping for tonight.
I move that we adjourn.
Is there a second for the
I would
motion?
second
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oh, wasn't that sweet?
I want to make one more comment about Lyndon, who you described as everybody's, key right-hand person. She's left-handed.
And then, you more than anybody should know that I have a family of left-handed people.
Oh, is that right?
And the similarity.